Hello there, welcome to another video, and this is going to be a series. Well, I say a series, it's not going to be a series really. What is common knowledge throughout all my friends is that my building skills in Sims 4 are, well, I can't build for toffee. I don't have the imagination to create something, and there are some amazing builders out there, and I'm not one of them. But I did watch a couple of tutorials. One of them was from Lil Simsy, and she said always start with a box and then work out. But I tried that and I just could not get it to work. It just looked like a shoebox. So I decided to build it wall by wall. And what I'm doing here is I am building a flat that I lived in back in 1997. It was a basement flat, and it was part of an old Victorian house. I think it was on about 4 flights. So the main flats were in the main building, and you went through like a front door, and the basement flat was just at the side of the house. It went down a couple of steps, and its front door was like a pair of conservatory doors that you can see there. Now, thinking back, it wasn't particularly secure, but I guess back then it didn't really matter. You never really thought about these things. It was a pretty unusual flat in its design. I get the impression it was sort of not really thought out properly. It was a bit of space that they had, and the landlords wanted to make a bit of money, so they just created this basement flat. It was cold. It was really cold. So that fire, which I must admit was an amazing fireplace. It really was sort of an old Victorian fireplace, which looked absolutely beautiful. It was on for most of the time, even in the summer. But it is what it is. And the bedroom was in the living room, so it was like a combined living room bedroom. I had my computer over in the corner there, and it was in the days of dial-up internet. Can anybody remember dial-up internet when it used to use your phone line? Oh, those are the days. And there's a cupboard on the wall to the right there. That was the electric cupboard, which used to operate by tokens that you used to buy from the post office. And that carpet is awful, but it was pretty accurate to the carpet that was in the flat, and I couldn't change it, unfortunately, because it was a rented flat and I couldn't make any changes like that, so I had to live with it for a year. The bathroom, the bathroom, it didn't have a window, and it stunk. Not overpoweringly stunk, but it had that musty smell all the time, and no matter how many times you cleaned it, it just never went away. TV was stuck in the middle of the room. I didn't really know where else to put it, and with the sofa being where it was, you were very limited with space, so you had to sort of do what you could. And I must admit, from the outside, having a TV on full view with a pair of patio doors as a front door, it wasn't very secure at all. But again, like I said, he never really thought about it. So I guess that is the living room and bedroom sorted out, and I must admit that is pretty accurate to how it was. As far as pictures were concerned, there weren't that many. In fact, I didn't have a lot of stuff to put in that flat initially, just due to circumstances that I won't go into. But that, I reckon, is pretty accurate for the front of the house. Front of the flat, rather. Now, if we look at the back, this is where it gets a little bit interesting, and this is where I think it was kind of sort of thrown together a bit. It had a huge kitchen, a really huge kitchen, with not a great deal in it. Now, but to get to the kitchen, you went through a door. And there was this long corridor, very narrow corridor to your right, And it's very difficult because it took me a while to get this right, because I was trying to remember how things were, and when you consider it was like 22 years ago, the memory starts to fade now and again when you think back to that length of time. But I think I managed to get it right. So at the end of the corridor, I put a cat litter tray, because I had a cat called Thomas, and he was fine with it. He used to trundle down the corridor and use it and trundle back again. It was just sort of out of sight, if you like, and it worked out fine. Now the room on the right was really quite scary, because there were no windows in that room and there was no light, and it was used as a bit of a sort of a storage room. And I do remember one occasion I had a cardboard box to throw in there, so I opened the door, threw the box in, and accidentally threw my house keys in as well. Now I didn't have a torch, and I must have spent about an hour in that dark room on my hands and knees trying to find my keys. I did eventually, thankfully, but it was a lesson learned there. Now back to the kitchen. As I said, it was very strange in the fact that it was huge, lots of room, and really could have done something with it if the landlords had thought about it. But what I think they wanted to do is just make it as a usable kitchen. So they had some units like this just under the window with a sink. And on the other side of the wall, along here, in a line, they had the fridge, the cooker, and the washing machine lined up like that. Now, I don't think that was ideal, but it was there, and couldn't do a lot with it. But what it did have in the kitchen was this wonderful oak table with 4 chairs, and that was kind of there. Now, unfortunately, it wasn't used all that much other than sort of cooking, because again, it was a very cold kitchen. It didn't have any heating in either, which is probably why I only stayed there for a year, because particularly in the cooler weather, I was constantly having a cold. And I do remember the kitchen had one of those old strip lights. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't find a strip light. This is sort of the closest I could find, but believe me, it was not as luxurious as that. And I did have a big old clunky microwave, and every time I turned it on, the lights used to dip, so I guess it wouldn't have passed a health and safety check. Right, I think that is not too bad as far as the actual design of the flat is concerned. Now, I'm trying to think about the outside of the property, and I know I did go through a considerable length of time trying to figure out what the design of the outside of the house was. Initially I thought it was a sort of a gravelly type of finish, but I did have a go and put it on there and it didn't look right at all. So I did go through some various designs, and I really did have to think back about what it was like. And then I came up with this, and that is almost spot on as to how the outside of the flat was. Now, I do know that when I moved out after a year, the landlords came and they did refurbish the whole place, so it would be interesting to see what it looked like. But this is how it looked like when I lived there. And I must admit, looking at the stills like this, it is really quite scary as how accurate I got it. So there you go. That is my first attempt at a speed build. I know it wasn't perfect, but this is where you come in, guys. Give me some tips, give me some help. I'll do another one next week, and I'm not quite sure. I'll probably do another place that I like. But thanks for watching anyway, and I shall speak to you soon.